Prince Daniel, also known as Aboki, is a broadcaster, filmmaker, and serial entrepreneur. The film My Martaba is part of 3 films that will showcase Nigerian stories and culture at the 2025 Nollywood in Hollywood event, holding at Hollywood's most prestigious screening venue, the Egyptian Theatre, and at Norris Theatre on the campus of the world's best film institution, the University of Southern California. The film highlights themes of love, greed, and betrayal in an ancient African kingdom that once experienced a trade boom through the Trans-Saharan Trade Exchange, which was short-lived due to a fierce internal power struggle among the powerful Agadashawa ruling clan. The movie was shot on location in Daura, Katsina State, Nigeria. Prince Daniel joins us live via Zoom from Kano State to talk about this.
Thank you very much for joining us at this time. You're welcome. Of course, we know that you are in transit, but we will keep it short and simple. How are you doing? How do you feel that your movie has gone into, before now it's gone into the international scene, but at this point it's still recognized looking at the theme of the movie and what it represents?
All right. Thank you very much, Theophilos and Adebanke, for having me on this very prestigious show. Yes, we're excited because the journey of Martaba is like 3 years now, but nobody knew what we were cooking until the NOSC selected Martaba to represent Nigeria at the Oscars, and then everyone then knew that there was a new lease for the industry down north. So we're excited about that, and then we're even more excited about the fact that we are amongst the 3 films selected for this year's Nollywood in Hollywood. And it came at a time that just 3 days ago, we signed a deal for the soundtrack of Martaba with Mayor Plaza, which is one of the biggest distribution companies in the United Kingdom, to distribute the soundtrack for Martaba, and that's a 3 years deal covering 234 countries. Just yesterday it came on Spotify. So we're excited because it opens up the industry down north, and then we also have the opportunity to share our story or our stories with the world.
Okay, congratulations once again. But I want you to tell us about Martaba and what it teaches the audience. I read a little about that in the intro, but I want you to, with your own mouth and in your own opinion, talk to us about it.
Yeah, so like over the tidbits, it is set in a kingdom called Jalaba, and we took it back to 1906, where the kingdom had an internal power struggle. And the internal power struggle was because the succession plan in the kingdom, as we set it, is that every ruler would have to by themselves appoint or anoint a successor at old age, not until they die. So when it came to the turn of the other clan, the Agadeshawa clan, the ruling king as at then, King Sarki, which is King Sanaya, decided to take a twist. And the twist was he then picked his daughter. So it's about women leadership, and it's also about power struggle that is symbolic of the African continent, especially in previous centuries.
Okay, so looking at this movie and what it represents now, you earlier mentioned that this has opened doors for Northern stories to thrive. How does this work? How do you think this will ensure that filmmakers can explore stories from the northern parts of the country, and it can also make the numbers like we are seeing in Lagos, where a lot of stories are making over ₦1 billion in cinemas? How do we go about all of that?
Yeah, so first, anytime I have this opportunity, I call the attention of the filmmakers first. And how do I do that is I always try to push the narrative that the future of African cinema are indigenous language films. And you can see the films doing the numbers, even from the eastern part or from the southeastern, western part of Nigeria, with films like Jagun Jagun, Lisabi, and all other films on the streaming platforms. Except, of course, the Black Book. I don't think any of these films made the much numbers on the streaming platforms. And then if you look at the wisdom of you would ask yourself, why would the Oscars in its 97th year give just one category to the whole world, which is the international feature film, that every country outside the US competes, and all the countries compete with indigenous language films. Just like you see between in the Oscars of 2005, 2006, where South Africa won with a Swahilian movie, Tutsi. Even though the narrative has been that it's Africa's first Oscars, but it's not. It's actually the third, because in 1969, 70s Oscars, Algeria went in with X, and then Africa showed up again in 1976, 75, 76 with the Côte d'Ivoire's movie then, Black and White in Color. So these are indigenous languages. Even Mati Diop's film that got shortlisted from Senegal, Dahomey, the movie documentary, which happens to be the only African film that even made it to the final cut, but didn't eventually make the nomination for the Oscars. So coming back to zero down on the question is that the filmmakers will first have to understand the place of the African language in African cinema globally.
So are you not suggesting that we try to forego such kind of international recognition or international awards like the Oscars and all whatnot, and focus on an African-centric award that can cater for this genre of African movies and we'll have an award ceremony that makes sense?
Yeah, so I've had that argument, but if you juxtapose it against the news that I just had on your station about Thames, you will see that if we have to play to validate who we are. But it is that we are scaling up our productions, we are scaling up our production values, and then we are becoming competitive to be able to play with every other players in the world. It is what it is. So like the whole rave about Thames' second Oscars, Grammys, is because it is in the biggest musical platform in the world. And that does a lot, even to the economy of a country, to go into the Oscars, to go into the Grammys, to play in the global stage. And I'll give you an example with Parasite from South Korea. When Parasite won, it opened up the creative economy of South Korea. And in fact, in that year, they said the revenue coming in to the movie stream was almost $4.5 billion US. That is what it is.
Okay, thank you for that. But just like you said, we in Nigeria, the creative industry in Nigeria, we are scaling up our production. But what else are we doing well? Because for an Oscar or the Grammys to, recognize us at this time when we don't have the kind of resources that Hollywood has, what do you think that we are doing right now? What do you think we should do more of, especially this year, seeing that we're just in February?
Yeah, so what we need to do more is that going into the Oscars, I said jokingly to my friends that the documentation process for the Oscars, to me, was even harder than making the film itself. But because the quality control of the Oscars is what I have never experienced in a film, in my entire film life. So that opened me up to the fact that we need to continue to scale up our productions as well as our production values, especially at post-production, because you have to have a certain grade for your sound, a certain grade for your picture, for your production design, and all that. So that we need to do. What else we also need to do is to be able to tell the African stories as authentic as we can. And I'll give you an example with the film that would have made the first cut for Nigeria at the Oscars, which is Genevieve's Lionheart years back. What got it disqualified was that local language was less than 50%. Yeah. And that year, Pidgin wasn't recognized as an international local language that could be used for the Oscars until Desmond's Milkmaid, which was also in Hausa, and then the one before me, Martaba, which is CJ Obasi's Mami Wata. So, bottom line is that we have to be able to tell the African story authentically. We have to be able to utilize or leverage the white man's technology to tell the African stories as authentic and as high scale as it should be, with high production values, and whatever other people are doing around the world.
All right, Prince, thank you so much for discussing with us. We know that you're on transit going to deliver a lecture, but thank you so much for talking to us and for giving us your audience and for blessing us with such kind of movie. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.